Moving to our next session, it's time to say hello to your brain, brought to us by NABS. We are beyond thrilled to have NABS as part of this track this morning. The organisation is really gold standard in championing well-being and welfare, particularly in the workplace, particularly in the advertising and media industry, and there's never been a time when it's been more needed, as we've already discussed this morning. The team of NABS have assembled a fantastic panel for this next session and how we train our brains to optimise our individual strengths and differences. So without further ado, I'd like to hand over to Pippa Glucklich, the Vice President of WACL and a great friend of mine, who will be moderating this session. Hi, Pippa.
Morning, everybody, and welcome. Welcome to the intriguingly named Say Hello to Your Brain. I hope your brain has woken up this morning. I can't say the same for mine. As Kathleen said, it's been brought to you by NABS as part of the Adweek's Mindfulness Summit. So really fascinating stuff we've been talking through this morning. My name's Pippa Glucklich, and I've been very privileged to be involved with NABS for about 12 years, and for around half of those, I've been a trustee supporting them in the fantastic work they do for our industry. So it's a real pleasure to be here with our esteemed panel. But why are we here? I'm sure, like me, you all think that you look after yourself pretty well. You go to the gym as often as you can. You definitely get your hair cut. You even go to the dentist when that reminder comes through. But how many of us can really say that we take care of the most important part of our being, the part that really makes us us, which is our brain? So we're all here in the right place this morning to find out why it's so important to look after our brains. It's really vital for our well-being and our resilience and how we perform. We've got a fabulous panel of experts who I'll introduce in a moment, and they're going to share with us insights and practical advice as to how we can really engage our brain and survive and thrive both at work and at home and in our personal lives. They've all been asked here today by NABS because they each bring a slightly different perspective, which I think should make for a very stimulating discussion. And there'll definitely be an opportunity for questions towards the end, so please make sure that you get them ready. Post this session, the good news is that if there's anything else you'd like to know around this subject, NABS have a wealth of experience and information to help you and your business in this area. The team at NABS have recently been doing a lot of work and taking learnings from neuroscience to apply to the products and services that they provide for our industry to really help future-proof the well-being of our working environment, but also you, our people, which, let's face it, is the only product we have in our industry. So, enough from me, let's get stuck in. We've got about 35 minutes, I think. I'm going to introduce the panel. Then we're going to chat for about 20 minutes, and then, as I said, we'll have about 10 to 15 minutes of questions, and there may even be a bit of audience participation. So, right. So, I'm going to start by briefly introducing our panel, although I'm sure it'll be obvious why they're here once we get stuck in. So Sarah Wood, I suspect probably needs no introduction. She is co-founder and CEO of highly successful global video and tech company Unruly. So I could be here quite a long time telling you about Sarah's many achievements, but I won't. I'll just tell you a few of them. She's an OBE, one of Business Insider's top coolest women in tech. She's been the Verve Clico Businesswoman of the Year. She's an associate lecturer at Cambridge, and so it goes on. But the reason Sarah is with us today, as an entrepreneur and leader, she likes to translate the science behind the brain into the day-to-day running of her business. So she's going to share with us today her views on how this thinking, as well as the importance of diversity, can affect teams and businesses in a really positive way. She's also here because she's author of a book on leadership called Stepping Up, which gives us a framework for achieving a sustainable and fulfilling career in fast-moving digital industry, which I'm sure is what we all need. So look forward to hearing about that. Next, we have Afia Basoa, who's Vice President of Rabin Martin, which is part of the Omnicom Group. Before joining Rabin Martin, Afia held roles as a Managing Director and European Business Lead at Apothecom, I don't know if I've said that right, and the Client Service Lead at Ogilvy Health World. So she's a leading health strategist, and she holds a Doctor of Philosophy in Neurosciences from Oxford University. Today, Afia is going to help us understand the corporate value and, really importantly, particularly for our industry, the importance that innovation that can be brought from neurodiversity in our teams. Next up, we have Soraya Shaw, who's strategic consultant in wellbeing and careers from NABS. So I'm hoping Soraya is going to tell us a bit more about the products and services that NABS have been developing recently, which we can all benefit from. With many years in a previous life notched up in creative agency, she really understands our industry and the nuances that make it tick. She has a background in psychology and incredibly is one of only 3 people worldwide studying an MSc in applied neuroscience in organisations, which is the first of its kind globally. And at NABS, she plays a really important role. She's responsible for the development and design of the wellbeing and career strategy. So, and as I mentioned earlier, that is neuro-based. And then, certainly, last but by no means least, we have our only man on the panel.
I'm sick of being the token man. Right, how's that fair?
I'm thrilled to introduce Derek Draper, former lobbyist, successful author, and of particular interest to us today. He's a psychotherapist and CEO, co-founder of leadership and talent development consultancy, CDP. So Derek is going to bring his experience of business with working at a deep and psychological and behavioural level to bring about lasting changes in our performance at work. So again, really interesting for all of us and for our businesses. I'm also hoping he's going to give us a bit inside track onto his forthcoming book, which is called Create Space: How to Manage Time, Find Focus and Productivity and Success. That's due out this summer. I certainly could do with some tips on that. So, right, on to our first question, which is going to be a bit of a panel discussion. As I said, there'll be opportunity for questions at the end, but I'm hoping that we'll get a bit of debate, maybe even a little bit of healthy disagreement, possibly, who knows. So I'm going to ask this one to Derek and Soraya first of all. So everything today in business and in life generally, but particularly in business in our industry, is about speed, being fast moving, always on, quick decision making, multitasking. It seems to be really highly valued. So how can learning from neuroscience, which I've got this right, I hope I've got it right, is about being mindful, being more thoughtful, focusing on one thing at a time. How can that be taken seriously by organisations, and why should it be taken seriously?
I think what's really changed is because it's all evidence-based now, we can actually see what's going on. And what happens with our brains is when we're trying to multitask, or we start to feel stressed, or we start to feel any pressure, what actually happens is our brains shut down. So you revert back to habitual thinking, habitual ways of doing things. So your cognitive part of your brain is just not working at all. And actually, if you want great solutions, great performance, great innovation, you need to have all of your brain working, not just being locked in emotions. So the whole multitasking thing is completely false, because actually you're wasting up so much energy of your brain actually doing that. So it's counterproductive, very counter.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I mean, there's a very interesting study that shows that when you're interrupted and you do something else briefly, the amount of time it takes your mind to go back to what you were doing is about 3 or 4 times the length of the interruption. Now, on a practical level, right, that means if you're sitting at your desk trying to write a brief or a report or something, and 3 of your colleagues come over to talk to you for 2 minutes each, you just added 20 minutes on to the length of time it will take you to do that piece of work, right? And 20 minutes you probably haven't got, so that's why you're kind of in the office late or working at weekends. So I think it is important to make sure that when you need to do what, there's a book, brilliant book, which you should read called Slow and Fast Thinking by Dan Canahan, who won a Nobel Prize for it. Which I suspect me and however great our books are, we're probably not going to get the Nobel Prize, right? And he talks about fast and slow thinking, which is system 1 thinking and system 2 thinking. So all I would add, I think, is, you know, sometimes fast thinking is okay, right? We all know that we can shoot off text, shoot off emails, go and talk to 5 people quite quickly. If you want to do slow thinking, which is more reflective, it's probably more creative, it's probably more kind of transformational in terms of the ideas that will come to you, then you do need to kind of create the space and the time to do that in a deeper way. And that does, in practice, mean shutting out other things and indeed other people.
Yeah.
That's really interesting. That sounds very individual. That sounds like something we all need to think about ourselves. But how can organisations really apply this to make better businesses, better working environments for their teams?
I think this is where businesses and business leaders really come into their own, and you need processes and practices around this. especially if you've got a great company of people who are really passionate, very collaborative, want to be doing things quickly, want to be doing things well. You kind of need to almost save your people from each other, because otherwise they will be constantly talking, collaborating, coming up with the next big thing, but without taking the time to regulate their pulses. So the thinking fast and slow, I think, is absolutely a critical way for business leaders and organisations to think about their own organisational health. And for me, it's about having a pulse in the business. And it's great to have regular pulses where people maybe have daily stand-ups when they talk to each other. They might have weekly meetings when they come together to check in. But making sure that as part of that pulse, you also have the days when you do have maybe a no meeting Mondays, or you have the afternoon when you agree not to communicate unless it's super urgent, when you have your quarterly offsites and you take the time for them, and that's expected and rewarded. And the long-term benefits of that, not just for an individual, but for businesses and the organisations, are really tangible and very powerful.
And actually, I think one thing I would add to that is just thinking about Google, who have invested in a program that not only has won the commitment of internal leadership and has had an impact on of employees. We've seen that they've managed to package that up. It's called Search Inside Yourself. They set up this Search Inside Yourself Leadership Institute as a consequence of the impact that they found it had with the internal teams in terms of concentration, in terms of compassionate leadership styles, in terms of productivity, in terms of reduced sick days. Mindfulness cannot be underestimated in terms of the benefit it brings to an organization. And with the likes of Google investing in programs that are so effective that they're packaging it up to highlight to others how it works, I think we should certainly take note. There is an evidence base, and one that's continuously growing.
Thank you. So that's interesting to hear about Google. I wasn't aware of that. Can I just ask the audience here, who in your own organisation is aware of any similar sort of programme, if you don't work for Google, that is? So are there any opportunities to do mindfulness or to do things like No Meeting Monday, things like that? I'm just interested to know whether this is really hitting our industry or whether it's quite early days. Can we just have a show of hands if people feel that that's something that their organisation is grappling with? Well, I'd probably say 10% at a push. So that's not great from the sound of things. It sounds like it's really important for us as individuals and businesses, and I think one of the things we're going to get stuck into is actually what are the practical things that we should be doing as businesses, aside from the things Sarah mentioned, but also how NABS, at the heart of our industry, can help us get better as an industry. So if we were to do a similar panel to this next year, I would hope that would be significantly higher.
Pippa, can I just mention that as part of NABS, we actually have a mindfulness programme. So people can actually come in and actually learn about mindfulness, because again, it's so evidence-based. So please remember that service is actually there at NABS.
Great, thank you. Okay, so can I just ask, Sarah and Afia, I mean, we've talked a bit about Google. Are there any other businesses that you think, and any ideally in our sector, that you think are doing this well? Any other examples that the audience can go and look up, or maybe pick up some top tips about how they might apply it to their own businesses?
So there's a real difficult thing here, which is you can look like a business that does all this. You can have all the window dressing, the well-being window dressing, but that doesn't mean that it kind of runs right through the organisation. It doesn't mean it actually has any benefit to the people working within the organisation. And businesses are a little bit like families. A family can look very nice from the outside, and the curtains can be clean and everything. The car can be washed, but then it's only if you live in that family you know how it functions. And I think one of the things we have to be really wary of as well-being becomes much more of a theme, rightly so becomes more of a theme, is it's not just about kind of pleasure, and it's not just about offering bits and bobs, but it's about, more than anything, offering purpose. Purpose, clarity, meaning, and that really needs to run right through an organisation in terms of how it sets its purpose, how it sets its mission, how it communicates it, how it makes sure that everybody in their everyday work knows what they're supposed to be doing, how they're contributing to the mission, because ultimately that's what will bring satisfaction and happiness in work, not necessarily doing a mindfulness course or doing a yoga course or making sure you take advantage of the perks.
Can you give us some examples of how you've done that at Unruly?
So, and I would never say that we're perfect. I think it's really interesting just having a few people putting their hands up. I was wondering if people at Unruly would put their hands up, because this is something that we focus on as a leadership team, but you don't always know how far down and across an organisation it's working. So yes, we have yoga sessions, we have lots of spaces where people can talk to each other, be very creative. So I think the creativity of the space is absolutely key. Fridges that open into Narnia worlds that you hadn't expected, places where introverts can sit. What we find is often workspaces in our sector in particular are created for people who love to talk and love to chat. But what if you're the person who wants to think quietly? So we've done a lot to design spaces and make time. I think that is the key thing. It's not sexy. It's not sexy to talk about making time, but just making sure that your people aren't scheduled back to back to back. 8 hours a day, 10 hours a day, responding to emails, resetting expectations about how your people behave. And again, it's not sexy, but it's getting the fundamentals in place. And I think that's what we need to do as a business. And if you're not already talking to your exec team about that, please do. And not just your HR team, your CEO. Are you talking to your CEOs about this? Because this is of great importance to them if they want to future-proof their team and their business.
I totally agree. I think leadership commitment and setting that purpose is fundamentally what's going to allow well-being to live within the workspace. I know that a number of years ago, a couple of networks that I worked in invested in working with a group called the Mind Clinic, and essentially it's headed up by a guy called Simon Park. They would come in and they would assess the well-being of one's team and pull together a personalised bespoke package whereby there was space developed internally to allow for, as you're saying, time to stop, time to reflect. But allowing that only comes from the top. So ensuring that leadership commitment is vital for it to live, so that as an individual within a team, you don't feel that you're slacking off by going into that space and taking 5 minutes more during your lunch break if so needed. So you're absolutely right. Purpose and leadership cannot be underestimated as organizations try to figure out what's going to work best for themselves. And ultimately, with the purpose piece, we do think as an organization about the bottom line. That comes if you have a strong purpose, people understand what it is, you have an engaged team, you're more likely to increase productivity just by virtue of that.
Okay, thank you. Derek, can I come to you, please? The advancements in this area are incredible, and particularly I think in the last 15 years have really catapulted forward. I'm interested to understand, you've been advocating relatively recently, I think, that we go back 100 years and learn from Sigmund Freud. So can you tell us a bit about why you think that?
Yeah, so Sigmund Freud wrote about many things, but one of the things that he didn't really discover but popularised was the idea of the unconscious, right? which Robin was referring to earlier. And you know, it's essentially the idea that we all are aware that we have certain thoughts and certain feelings, but actually we may have, on a deeper level, other thoughts and feelings that we're not fully aware of. So, you know, people hold a set of assumptions and beliefs about about themselves, about their interaction with the world, about how the world's going to treat them. Most of that learnt when you're very young, and you carry it with you. And it's not always in touch with reality. So another famous psychoanalyst, Melanie Klein, is credited with the idea that we live in, sort of, again, popularising the idea that we live in two worlds, the external world of reality, and our internal worlds, and of course they're not always the same, right? So I think the reason that Sigmund Freud is worth thinking about is because, you know, fantastic as neuroscience is, and as popular psychology is, and as innovations like what you're trying to do is, you know, it's amazing and fascinating. That core idea that, well, hang on, maybe what you think and feel is not what you think and feel on a deeper level, and if you again take some space and time to try and tap into that and reflect on it and draw it out, you may discover things about yourself that have been hitherto invisible. Freud's contemporary Carl Jung said, if you don't make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate.
Yeah, I completely agree with. I mean, we do a lot of that work at labs, actually getting people to. We have our conscious brain, which is really only this bit here, and the rest of it is all completely unconscious, and it develops through our childhood, through our life. I know we're going to talk about it a bit more, but we go right down to what are people's beliefs, what are their triggers, how are they affecting the way that they behave, mix with other people, work. You know, the kind of self-belief and they have around themselves. So it's very, very important. And to your point, it's actually about, to build on the purpose and meaning, it's about organisations creating an environment where people feel secure and safe, so they can be themselves, they can have a chance to think. They're not worrying about, you know, my stress level's going out the roof, I'm a working mum, I've got to leave now, what are people going to think about me? You know, organisations have to help create that place of safety, because the brain is always looking to make sure that we survive, so it's always scanning. Anything it picks up that it sees as danger makes it shut down, so you don't get the best from your people at all, because they're just then living in their emotions, not their cognitive brain.
Thank you. So, Afi, I know one of your kind of specialist subjects is innovation, and innovation is important in all businesses, but in the ad industry, it's absolutely second to none. It's what, you know, our business lives and dies on. So you've talked a lot about innovation, curiosity, and the value that neurodiversity brings to business. Can you explain a bit more about, you know, how we can unleash the untapped innovation and potential within our own organisations?
Yeah, so much of the work that our team does at Raven Martin is really support the pharmaceutical industry, NGOs, foundations, build leadership in health. And much of the work that we, well, I should tell you actually, it's a management consultancy focused specifically on global health, so that's why. And much of the conversations we're having with clients is all around innovation, and that's not new. What's really new and what we're finding with clients is really trying to unearth and really unpick and unpackage what innovation means. We're currently working with a client who has been in operation for 350 years successfully, and they're one of the few companies that we have worked with that have spent an immense amount of resources, talent, money, really trying to unpick innovation. And they've distilled it down through a number of key research pieces to curiosity being their driver, and really what has navigated their world over the last 350 years, and what they're hoping will continue in terms of the success that they have found and built over the next 350. Curiosity, you know, we all innately are curious, we hope. Why aren't we curious in the work environment? They have a curiosity model that they have developed, which really talks about the distress tolerance piece. How comfortable are we with challenges? Are we in the workplace allowed to feel that it's okay to fail? And ensuring that there are environments in place to allow people to fail and encouraged people to fail is important for that distress tolerance piece. Creativity, what are we doing in the workplace to ensure that people have different spaces, different environments, different stimulus, to really ensure that we are thinking, I hate the cliche of thinking outside the box, but really looking to bring something new. And it's interesting that companies are going one step further in the hunt for bringing something new. And if we look specifically at our talent pool, I have an interest in neurodiversity. And neurodiversity essentially is diversity, neurological diversity. And really neurodiverse are labelled as those who have dyslexia, dyspraxia, dyscalculia, ADHD, autism. And in the hunt for new talent that's going to allow organisational innovation, we're finding there's been a real upward trajectory of companies tapping into the neurodiverse population who traditionally have been unemployable, because from a social interaction standpoint, you usually find those with autism, not always, have social interpersonal difficulties. So if you put them in a situation of interviewing, you're not going to get a lot of those individuals through the interview process. Smart companies have thought about how to better screen to open up avenues for those who are neurodiverse. Neurodiverse as a population tend to be much more analytical, much more focused, repetition-based. Work is something that they're keen to do and really find trends very easily. So companies like SAP in the States, Freddie Mac in the States, Microsoft and Ernst & Young, who've actually set up a neurodiversity center of excellence specifically to focus and bring to their organization those who are autistic, just highlights the lengths that people are going to find innovation.
So one of the things we've talked a bit about this morning is a lot of the companies that are doing advancements in this space are very big companies. So what would you suggest, for those of us in organisations, smaller organisations, or even organisations that are large but aren't really doing this? What can we practically do so to tap into that neurodiversity? I mean, we have enough of a challenge, and we can talk about that in a minute with Sarah, around diversity, let alone neurodiversity. So what would you suggest we do to try and make that change?
Well, it's interesting. There are a couple of organisations, HR resourcing organisations, that have been set up specifically to help our industry tap into that. Autocon is one, where Roy, who heads it up, essentially will come in and speak with leadership team regarding what it is that the neurodiverse can bring to an organisation, and really helps filter the very same way that any kind of HR, external HR group would.
And are there any web-based things that the audience and I could kind of go and check out later?
I would definitely check out Autocon. I'll check out Lime Connect also. They specialise in hunting down those who are neurodiverse. Right, okay. Simply because that population can bring something so different. Brilliant. And you tend to be very creative in the way that they think.
Okay, good. I will be checking those out. So that leads me nicely on to Sarah. So diversity is a hotter topic than ever, and hopefully we're going to start seeing some real change rather than lots of talking about it. We constantly hear that it's good for business, and there is some evidence based around that. But can you give us some really tangible, practical example of what you've done in Unruly, and ideally what impact you've seen on your bottom line as a result?
Before that, though, can I just come back to the idea of neurodiversity? Because I don't know, there's something I find quite troubling about it, the neurodiverse. And I just think it's diversity of all sorts is something that we should welcome for social reasons, for reasons of conscience, reasons of business. But the idea of the neurodiverse and seeking out people, I think we have to be really careful that we're not labelling and boxing people. And then also that we create a culture where lots of different people can thrive. Because I can imagine it's very easy to do screening and to apply all kinds of smarts to a selection process, which then brings someone into an organisation who is going to struggle to thrive in that organisation. Unless you have an organisation that is ready to be ready for diversity, ready to be empathetic, and I think that's the key to it. Having that culture which welcomes diversity of all sorts, whether it's about background, race, gender, neurological predilections or whatever. Empathy is absolutely key. So I think anyone who's focused on building a stronger work culture and benefiting from diversity needs to make sure they've got an empathetic culture, because that's what will help you be set up.
I think you're absolutely right. Sorry, but I think then there's a lot of box ticking going on at the moment. Have we got certain diversity boxes ticked? But practically, how can organisations really make that happen?
And it comes back to safety as well. I think if you've not got safety, again, you're not going to benefit from it. So you could have great diversity on paper, but then you're not going to reap the benefits unless people feel safe to be themselves, to express their opinions, and to share their ideas. And what that will mean is it comes down to innovation. So if people are feel free to share their ideas, they're crazy, wacky ideas, and we all know 999 of our ideas will be shit, and that's fine, because you need all those ideas before you have one that will work. And I'm using shit subjectively. It might be a brilliant idea, but not just right for this time, this product, this audience. But you want everyone to feel that their ideas are welcomed, and that their experiences are valued. That's important for innovation. It's also important for making better decisions. Certainly I know in Unruly we're very lucky to have a very diverse exec, certainly in terms of gender and in terms of thinking. And we look to each other, we lean on each other for different perspectives, because I'm never going to be the one to come up with the kind of strong analytical rationale for why 3 chess moves down the line this isn't going to work. But I know I've got people on the team who will. And that's really helpful. But just knowing that you've got a bunch of people around you who think differently and valuing the fact that you think differently. Thank goodness you're going to think differently from me and you're going to think differently from her, because we need that. And we need that if we're going to better understand our customers as well. So especially in advertising. I think we also have a responsibility, being in advertising, being in media. It's not just about the workplaces that we create, it's about the advertising that we make and distribute. I know one of the things that, a concrete example of how diversity has helped our business was International Women's Day this year. Press for Progress was the theme. Every year we talk about it, and this year we got together and we said, look, we're not going to talk about it this year. We're going to do something. What can we do? What can we deliver that is actually going to have an impact? And then the ideas bubbled up from around the company, and then the idea came up from our data team of stereotype analysis tool. So we launched on International Women's Day a stereotype analysis tool, which means that any brand who's working with us testing their content can analyse their content for stereotypes and know where they might fall foul of the ASA regulations and understand how they can change that. Now that's powerful. Wow. And within days we had lots of brands getting in touch, agencies getting in touch. So clear business value that wouldn't have happened if we didn't have a culture where people felt able to bring ideas, kind of wacky ideas as well. It's not necessarily core to distribution, but really powerful nonetheless.
So again, just to bring that back to how can people find out more information? Get in touch with Unruly. Is there anything on your website about that, or is it just too new?
Oh yeah, come onto the website, and there's hello at. It's always a good email to get hold of us. Lots of people here will be working with Unruly and will know Unruly. So yeah, please do get in touch. We're very excited about it and excited about evolving it, because one of the things that came about as a result of that was the UN got in touch and said we'd love you to be involved in our programs for looking at stereotyping around the world. And other groups got in touch and said, well, that's great, you've got it for gender, but what about ethnicity? What about economic background? Are there any ways that you can evolve the product set to do that? So we're looking to work with other partners to evolve that content testing tool.
Great. Well, get in touch with Unruly if you've got anything or if you want to know more. Right, before we move on to questions, Soraya, I have no idea what neuroplasticity means.
Neuroplasticity is wonderful. It's actually what we've all been talking about here, actually. So when they have that saying that you can't teach an old dog new tricks is absolutely rubbish. Right. Because our brains are incredibly flexible and plastic, and they're changing all the time. You know, inside our brain is a huge network of connections going on. In fact, creatives, they bring together 3 different very powerful networks. It's quite unique in the way that they actually work. But what it means is throughout your life, from your DNA, from your upbringing, the school you went to, the friends you mix with, the first jobs you have, your brain is moving and creating pathways based on those experiences. And it continues throughout your life. And one thing the brain loves to do is to learn. So the more that you can learn from different people, individuals, you know, it just grows and it absolutely thrives on it. It really, really does. So that's why creating that environment is so important. But I think you're all talking what's key is the individuality, because we do all have different pathways, and our pathways are making different connections because of our experiences. We're bringing something completely different to the table. We have a different way that we look at the world. You know, we're not all stereotypical. And that's what's so fantastic about diversity in our business, and that's what we need, really, for creativity and ideas. Whether you've had bad experiences or good ones, doesn't really matter.
Can you just touch briefly on what NABS are doing about this? What are the products and services that we as an industry can tap into and work with NABS on? Yeah,
we've actually done a lot. We've recently updated all our masterclasses. So we have confidence and gravitas, lots around resilience, building your brand, influence, and it's all, each part explains what's actually happening in your brain, because what we found is people love the context of it. It normalises what's going on and helps them understand it. We're going to be launching a new one-to-one wellbeing coaching program. We've been doing a lot around wellbeing. In November, we launched our wellbeing model, which is based on a lot of the neuroscience and the psychology and everything that you've been hearing here this morning. And then in the future, what we're going to be looking at is very much what you were saying about leadership, is actually you can teach, you know, have wonderful KPIs and all those kind of stuff for your leaders. But if they don't understand what's actually going on inside of somebody else's head and their mind, then they're never going to get the best from them. So that's something that we'll be developing in the year as well. And plus our advice line and all the whole team, everybody is focused on well-being, you know, our new model and how we can actually really support the industry and the people more.
Great, thank you. And there's lots more on NABS's website as well. So we've got about 8 minutes for questions. So who's got a question? Please wait for the microphone so that we can all hear you. There's one at the back there.
Hello. Hi. Isn't one of the problems that it's an unregulated industry? I mean, I have a friend who's trained for 6 years to be a psychotherapist, and equally a friend who's a life coach and has done a 6-week course and is now doing stuff around mental health, which I think can be quite dangerous. But I just want to get your views on that.
Derek, do you want to answer that for us as a psychotherapist?
Yeah. So I think buyer beware, right? You know, if you're a psychotherapist, which I think is very different to being a executive coach, then you should be a member of, I think there's 3 or 4 organisations which are effectively as near to regulation as we're going to get. So if you have a mental health problem, then you should be going to someone who's accredited with, I won't bore you with who they are, but it's very easy to kind of Google all this. And even if you want an executive coach, there are certain accredited organisations like the International Coaching Federation that people have to do significantly more than a 6-week course. So you'd have to have a certain number of hours, etc. So I think, you know, we're not going to get regulation because it's too complex and I don't think the government's interested. But what you can do is yourself and tell anyone else that, you know, with a bit of diligence online, you can find out who has got the right qualifications and experience to kind of help. That makes sense.
Yeah, if I can build on that as well, with being an executive coach, you actually have to keep retraining and doing your hours every 3 years. So it's continual learning that you have to do. So that's really something to check for as well as a kind of a quality check, that they're having that CPT all the time.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Hi, I'm Charlie, NABS. Fantastic. Thank you very much, everyone. I thought really, really interesting content, and I'm sure we could probably ask loads of questions all day. I'm interested in the Mind Clinic that was mentioned, which is bespoke packages for individuals. Over at NABS, we know that the stress in the industry is rising pretty sharply, with 1/3 of people calling now for stress. I know that with technology coming in, there are new AI apps like Status Today, which will be able to monitor every single aspect of individuals as they are working. Now, that could be great, because that could be a manager saying, listen, you're taking too many emails after 7 o'clock, you're to stop it. So obviously you could be able to hold people better. But what effect are these sorts of apps, if they really do come in, and they seem to be taking off pretty heavily, what effect is that going to have on people's brains? And are we going to be getting way more calls to the advice line?
Afia, is that something you could help
I
answer?
that. That's an interesting one. As somebody who's given up a bit of social media over the Lent period. No, it's interesting. I was reading an article yesterday. There's another conference going on in the States, very similar to this, and they were talking about the benefits of tapping into some of the technological advancements. I think it's a double-edged sword. There will be some technologies that will certainly benefit, but with anything, it's the overuse and finding the balance of what's going to work for yourself, for an organisation. And I think technology certainly has its place, and it's finding that in one's working life, in one's personal life. One can have too much of anything.
Particularly, we talked a bit about mindfulness and what Charlie's referring to. Are there any particular apps that you'd really recommend, or websites or so on, that would kind of cut through the plethora that there are out there. Has anybody
think-
got any particular recommendations?
Well, and I have no shares in Headspace, but Headspace is certainly one that pops to mind.
Yeah.
I know a number of people within our organisation that use Headspace
Yeah.
and rave about it. I'm sure there are many others, but it's certainly one that comes to mind. And there's another called Peak, which isn't necessarily set up in the same way as Headspace, which guides you through meditation, but actually helps just brain function. I'm sure there are a multitude of others.
Yeah, it's something that we're actually looking into in NABS, because again, they need to be evidence-based and
Yeah.
proved. But also your Fitbits or whatever they are so wonderful, because, you know, your brain needs to be healthy. It needs exercise to release all those good neurotransmitters and stuff. So just having that and being aware of what you are doing, because it's very easy just to sit at your desk. You know, there's a 5x5 rule for the brain, because it uses so much energy, that actually every 5 times a day, you should take a 5-minute break. So again, that's helping you think, you know, recharge. So that's just a little tip that you can do very, very easily.
Thank you. Any other questions? Kathleen, did you have one?
It's a question actually to Derek, as a fellow psychotherapist and someone who believes in bringing mental wellness to the office, if you like. Stigma still seems to be quite severe, particularly in the UK. And I'm just wondering, with the organisation that you work with, how do you bring that in? How are you bringing that in a way that's becoming more accepted in corporate organisations?
Well, to be honest, we don't. What we do is kind of assess and develop leaders and teams. So we don't really work in the well-being space as such. Now you know, obviously I believe that if a leader becomes a better leader and the team is more kind of functional in terms of its internal dynamics and its purpose and meaning, as people have been saying, then that will affect the well-being of people. You know, I was quite struck actually in the early part of the discussion. I think, without it being brought out, that there are two aspects, which is how can employees do things which help their employees' well-being almost outside the job, right? So you know, helping them with stress, for example, right? Although stress might be caused by the job, it might not be, right? And then there is actually what can you do at the core of I think you were saying it, Sarah, right? In the core of the actual work that people are doing, how can you make them have a better sense of well-being? And so, yeah, so we don't really go in and help people with their mental health. We help them with their leadership skills. That makes sense.
Can I just add on, we have a resilience program because, as Charlie was saying, you know, stress is just rising so much. And one thing we try and do in the masterclass is ask them to create language around how would you talk about it? How can you go back to your organisation, be an ambassador, and actually get people to open up and start talking? And how can you actually recognise the symptoms as well? So to really try and normalise it.
Brilliant, thank you. We're almost out of time, so I know there's one, if we can be very quick, then we'll, quick question, quick answer, and then we'll have to wrap up.
Hello there, thank you, panel, for a very fascinating debate. I've got a question. Much of our business now is done online and globally, out of hours. How would you create time to think and space to be creative when a lot of our work and our meetings are done via Skype, via email, via teleconferencing?
Sarah?
This is something that we grapple with at Unruly. So lots of different offices, small teams, individuals responsible, feeling a strong sense of ownership. It is really hard. So I think, first of all, it comes from the top. So you do need to have a leadership team who says, this is important, we need to make the time. And to each of the team leads, what is your time going to be? Is there going to be a day of the week, a morning, even an hour a day, where you agree just to give each other the space? And then ensuring that people take time out to do this. So if you've got a yoga session or a mindfulness session, make sure that you as a team lead are there, demonstrating that, living it by example. That's one way I'd say you can do it. And then rewarding people who think about this. So we have a lot of groups. Our biggest group really is the diversity group, and everyone was very keen to join, coming up with new initiatives, and things bubble up. So we would be having kind of like international lunches that we hadn't had before. And funnily enough, a lot of the wellness initiatives came out of the diversity group, and flexibility policies came out of that diversity group. So I think when you have people, and making sure that everyone feels comfortable suggesting things and then following through on them, and that's about culture. So that's why I say a lot of it comes down to leadership. But if someone says, you know, it's really hard when you're a mum coming back to work, and I'm so desperate to come back to work, and I can't wait, but I'm really anxious, and how are we going to manage it? Well, there are great things you can do there. You can have parental coaching. You can make sure you have a mentor within the organisation steering them through. You can have flexible phased return to work. You know, every kind of issue there will be a set of solutions around it. So I'm a big fan of finding out what a specific problem is, and I think generalities are difficult to talk around. What's the specific issue? And then how might you and your team, in the smallest way, start solving it? And then if what you're doing works, and even if it's just choosing an hour when you don't work, everyone agreeing no emails after 8 p.m, whatever it might be. For me, it was always weekends and evenings. I just don't respond to emails unless they're really, really urgent after 9 p.m. So find a small thing, go for it, follow it through, and spread it across the business.
Brilliant. What a great way to end. Thank you very much. So I hope you have not only said hello to your brain, you're very well acquainted with it now. I'd like to say a thank you to our fabulous panel. You've been great. Thank you to all of you for taking the time out this morning for this important area. Don't forget to go to nabs.org.uk to check out more events and all the stuff that Soraya has been talking about. And have a good day.